We are still out on the road, but we are absolutely keeping up with the daily grind and drama of the soccer world. I will cover the transfer market drama soon because that massive Rodri deal is starting to completely flip on its head. But today we have to focus on FIFA, especially after their recent meeting on turf where Gianni Infantino feels entirely too comfortable. Yes, the FIFA president still has a few safe havens left in international soccer, and Morocco is definitely one of them. They released an official statement after yesterday's high-level meeting. It tries to shield Infantino, but looking at it from a distance, I see a leader in deep trouble. He is standing on very thin ice. His hours are numbered, and securing re-election or even just survival as the president of FIFA is looking nearly impossible right now. Still, this is dirty soccer politics, and massive money is involved. Look, there is a huge difference between scraping together enough votes to win an upcoming election and actually governing FIFA. This loss of control is a massive crisis for Infantino, and honestly, I do not think there is any way out for him anymore. The hole he dug himself into is just too deep at this point. And even if he manages to win another vote, he cannot actually lead global soccer. His days at the top are absolutely numbered. When FIFA self-critiques their shady plan to privatize a massive chunk of the World Cup, they only blame bad communication. They never question Infantino's aggressive actions. They do not look at how he builds corrupt deals that threaten national teams and the entire global sport, confederations, and leagues. Every single club is affected. He is completely redrawing the soccer map behind closed doors, driving this shift all by himself, scheming and negotiating in the shadows. These massive power plays do not happen overnight, yet FIFA acts like his secret deals are not even a big deal. To them, the only real failure was a minor PR hiccup, and they just need to spin the messaging better next time. And just like that, fans and pundits are forced to look at FIFA with the exact same disgust as before. On top of that, FIFA boldly claims they will not tolerate any attacks on their integrity, promising to take every legal step necessary to defend their precious reputation. What reputation? If there was one single thing they desperately tried to build recently, it was a brand clean enough to help them escape a dark history defined by constant corruption, especially after the massive FIFA Gate scandal and decades of operating as a thoroughly crooked organization. Changing that rotten image was exactly what Infantino tried to do as the new boss. Maybe he did not actually clean up the underlying corruption, but he certainly tried to polish how the global public viewed them. And let me tell you something, to some extent he actually succeeded. Up until the last World Cup, Infantino navigated those shark-infested waters quite well, managing endless competing interests. He swam with the big sharks, balancing regional interests, expanding the tournament size, and pretending to bring some real transparency to the game. But then, the dark truth started leaking out, right as the United States World Cup approached. The tournament in America completely ruined him. It proved that in exchange for hosting rights, he handed out massive business favors, cut backroom deals, and took on excessive, shady obligations that clearly lined the pockets of outside parties, instead of helping the sport of soccer. And that is the massive price Infantino is paying for this specific World Cup, to the point where we must ask, what actual integrity is he trying to defend here when the entire organization is crumbling? I mean, literally 2 days ago, he was actively trying to sell off the World Cup right under everyone's noses. So, what kind of process or leadership can you possibly defend when your very own president hides everything from his closest advisors, his directors, and the confederation heads? Absolutely. Nobody was told that he was quietly auctioning off the World Cup. This isn't just some standard advertising or sponsorship deal. He is literally selling ownership stakes in the World Cup itself. And because of that, obviously, Infantino is in a completely indefensible position. Sure, he can count his loyal votes and flee to Morocco, a very friendly, fertile ground where he always feels safe. But look at the price. Early reports suggest he is handing the World Cup final over to Morocco as a payoff. Never forget that the bidding process originally started with Spain and Portugal as the clear, joint candidates to host. But then, at some point, wanting to look politically correct and secure sympathetic votes during a highly sensitive global crisis, he suddenly pushed to throw Ukraine into the mix as a co-host. Then, as part of his elaborate scheme to hand the '34 World Cup directly to Saudi Arabia, he basically said, What if we give Morocco a few games? So, the tournament that belonged entirely to Spain and Portugal, which first added Ukraine to look good and lock in votes, ended up slicing off a major portion for Morocco and Africa. Africa is total Infantino country. It is the one confederation that moves almost entirely based on the financial handouts he can distribute. Let's be completely honest here. It is likely the single most corrupt confederation and group of national associations in the game, but honestly, they are the ones who do whatever Infantino wants, basically telling them, instead of giving you 10 million, I am giving you 40 million right now for this next 4-year deal. And if they have to sell out the game, they will do it, because the only thing they care about is lining their pockets quickly. So they lock down Africa by throwing Morocco into the mix. Just like that, Africa and Europe are locked in. We just came from a tournament in America, so the next one goes to Saudi Arabia. That is how he easily keeps Africa happy. Then came the issue of the centennial celebration. He suggested playing one game in Argentina, Uruguay, and Paraguay, simply because Paraguay is where the CONMEBOL headquarters are located. Next, they pitched this massive expanded tournament. Instead of just one match per country, you get the chance to host entire groups or multiple games across South America. Suddenly, you have pleased 3 whole continents and checked off the historic centennial. You get Europe on your side, and you secure those crucial votes from Africa. That explains why Africa, and Morocco in particular, has become such a fertile breeding ground for his political survival. But now look at UEFA. They are his biggest enemy in all of this, with CONCACAF playing second fiddle. UEFA is absolutely the main threat standing in his way right now. Do you honestly believe that UEFA is going to just accept this? They put out a massive statement right after FIFA claimed yesterday that none of this changes the final plans. Not even with the lingering threat of a massive boycott looming over the upcoming World Cups. Do you really think UEFA, locked in a brutal war with Infantino and his current FIFA administration, is actually going to allow Spain and Portugal to host a World Cup without taking the absolute center stage they deserve? There is no way they let this happen without being the main attraction and the ones running the entire show. Would they just let Infantino run around Africa, promising them the final match just to secure their loyalty and win over their crucial votes? Would they really let him hand the tournament to Spain and Portugal just so CONMEBOL stays quiet, keeping those 10 South American votes happy with a few extra games on home soil? Or let Africa walk away satisfied with hosting the final? Do you honestly think UEFA is just going to sit back and play along with this ridiculous game? That is exactly why I kept telling you that in the end, well, look at what the president of the Jordan Football Association just said. He revealed they had not even received their prize money from the Arab Cup 8 months ago. Money they desperately needed to fund their local soccer development and prepare for the World Cup. Today he came out and admitted, thanks to me speaking up yesterday, they finally sent us the money. It is a shame it is 8 months late, but I guess we should ironically thank FIFA for finally paying. We are also starting to realize that despite FIFA sitting on an absolute mountain of cash, as their financial reports boast, they still have not paid the $250 million promised to clubs that did not qualify for the Club World Cup. It was meant to make up for that massive financial gap. Because of this delay, the upcoming Club World Cup currently has absolutely no official backing, no host country, no funding, and absolutely nothing else. They cannot build a new tournament when they still have not paid out what they owe from the previous one. Personally, I absolutely love the whole concept. The Club World Cup deserves a real, permanent spot on the global soccer calendar, especially since the first edition turned out to be a massive success. Sure, we can learn from that first tournament and make major improvements. But let us be real, this is a massive business, and UEFA knows they are sitting in a position of total power. Because let us be honest, what kind of Club World Cup can you even have without Real Madrid, Manchester United, AC Milan, Inter Milan, Juventus, Barcelona, Liverpool, or Bayern Munich? If you do not have Paris Saint-Germain and the rest of Europe's elite, your tournament is completely dead. So right now, the entire plan for this Club World Cup is incredibly half-baked. Is it impossible? Of course not. In this business, nothing is impossible. Everything can change overnight the very second someone shows up with the right funding and cash. And let me repeat this. After seeing all the genuine interest and excitement generated by the inaugural edition, it really should not be as difficult as before to put together an incredible tournament featuring top-tier clubs and a massive pile of cash to distribute. Because at the end of the day, all they care about is having a massive payout. But as we speak, Infantino's administration is still struggling to finish paying off the bills from the last World Cup. They had not paid Jordan, and probably owe other federations from the Arab Cup too. Now he finds himself in a tight spot with several confederations united against him, and only a few on his side. This is where we have to start doing the math and counting the votes. Let us see, he definitely has Africa locked down, and he has CONMEBOL in his pocket. CONMEBOL actually called an emergency meeting today, and we will have to wait for their official statement. But it is obvious that Infantino is desperately trying to play every single card he has left. I mean, just yesterday he started flooding social media, reposting old photos of himself standing next to all those iconic soccer legends during the last World Cup. To me, it seems like people are confusing two very different situations. Look, in my opinion, it is one thing for these legendary players to go and take part in a massive celebration like the World Cup. At the end of the day, these soccer legends are exactly that, legends. They belong to the sport itself, not to the messy political agenda of Infantino. Secondly, these are people who want to stay in the soccer world. Obviously, they can contribute far more because they actually know the sport. They played it, lived it, and built their entire lives around it through their legendary careers. And third, they also make a living. So demanding things from them, expecting these icons to boycott the World Cup just because they might disagree with Infantino is just absurd. It is their event. Honestly, it is a ridiculous demand. At the end of the day, it is about their basic right to work, to show up, secure TV deals, sign major sponsorships, and simply be a part of the action. Let us not forget, FIFA is the one inviting these legends. Sure, you might hate the current president, but the stars showing up are answering to the institution of FIFA, not to Infantino himself. Still, Infantino desperately tries to cling to them. Just yesterday, he reposted dozens of photos with soccer legends who stood by him during the World Cup, actively begging them for public statements of support. The truth is, Africa is fully backing him, and South America will soon release a statement through CONMEBOL. But despite what they say, CONMEBOL is acting pretty lukewarm right now. They know exactly how fragile their position is, but they have always been a deeply loyal confederation to Infantino. Meanwhile, CONCACAF is completely against him, while Mexico remains stuck inside a bubble of, let us wait and see. We need more details before deciding, and now they claim they are glad it did not happen. But CONCACAF is actually pushing Victor Montailani, who is now emerging as one of the major powerful candidates to succeed Infantino as the next president of FIFA. Look at the numbers. 55 from UEFA are against him, maybe 41, but not that many. 35 from CONCACAF are opposed. Out of 211 federations, Asia is totally split. Oceania has remained completely silent. Right now, staying silent is being viewed as a quiet sign of support for Infantino rather than anything else. If you keep your mouth shut, you are with Infantino. If you release a bold statement, you want to make it clear you stand against him. That is why I think Infantino might still pull this off. It looks tough, but he might just secure the votes for re-election next year. If you add up CONMEBOL and Africa, and he somehow wins the battle for Asia, which is extremely divided and controversial right now, well, he might win the election, but he cannot win actual power. If he wins without UEFA, what kind of Club World Cup is he going to have? Without UEFA, who is going to host the next World Cup? Especially if Spain and Portugal turn their backs on him. UEFA is a vital powerhouse. They know their worth, and they want their share of real power. The ironic part is that Infantino actually came from UEFA. But what is even more fascinating is the candidate emerging from UEFA, besides Alexander Safarin, who does not seem to have much support among the other global confederations anyway. Even though UEFA is pushing him hard, the real figure they want to look at is Al-Khelaïfi of Qatar, the president of Paris Saint-Germain. He grabbed absolute power and became the right-hand man of UEFA during the Super League crisis. Right when that idea emerged, because when the Super League plan was revealed, it instantly split UEFA between those in favor and those against. Every single club supporting the Super League ended up leaving the European Club Association, which was led by Agnelli, the president of Juventus back then. Suddenly, Agnelli and Juventus were out, while Real Madrid and Barcelona were pushed into a secondary role. So who takes over the European Club Association? Al-Khalifi. During that crisis, he became the ultimate power broker, forcing everyone to pick a side. Are you with UEFA or the Club World Cup? Al-Khalifi became the direct right hand of UEFA. That entire Super League drama massively boosted his power, making him an incredibly influential figure inside UEFA. He is extremely close to President Ceferin, and because of that, despite rumors claiming he has no interest, since it is a highly stressful position anyway, many insiders argue it is actually better to run UEFA than to deal with the intense spotlight of the FIFA presidency. But even with all those backroom theories swirling around, Al-Khalifi's current standing makes him look like a very real candidate to inherit the throne. Still, other names will emerge, because UEFA might struggle to find global consensus. Right now, Victor Montilani is definitely the most important name to watch. Sure, there are other names popping up from inside UEFA and FIFA, but people would just see them as more of the same. Some names are popping up from the Asian and African federations, though I doubt they have enough real power. Then you get these second-tier options like David Beckham, who keeps getting thrown into the mix, but I just do not see it happening. Sure, he is a massive global brand in the soccer world, but he completely lacks the political muscle you need to survive this game. That is why I said it is going to be tough for Infantino to find those votes. But maybe he can pull it off, especially if he plays his cards right and decides who gets the money. So he might grab the votes, but he will never actually be able to govern. This is exactly why I think the Infantino era is basically over, because even if he somehow wins re-election, he simply cannot bend UEFA to his will. Without the support of UEFA and CONCACAF, the opposition is just too heavy and too strong. He cannot possibly build a new Club World Cup when he does not even have the contracts signed or the deals locked in, or organize the next World Cup where UEFA countries like Spain and Portugal will host the vast majority of it. It seems pretty much impossible. In fact, UEFA is pointing to a battle they have fought for years. They even took it to court, claiming that FIFA acts as both the judge and a competing party. Think about it. FIFA is supposed to oversee the entire global game, but they are also deeply in the business, because they run the tournaments that make all the money. So, UEFA is directly challenging this double standard. Remember, the primary goal of FIFA is not to hoard billions, because they are not a private corporation. They are supposed to govern the sport. So UEFA is complaining that the very body meant to run the sport is acting like a greedy competitor, fighting the local associations for every single dollar of soccer revenue. Of course, UEFA wants more control. We have talked about this exact power struggle dozens of times before. It is a massive, brutal turf war between UEFA and FIFA. Even though FIFA technically has the global brand and supposedly rules over the entire world of soccer, they do not have the real power. Lately, the serious cash is coming directly from UEFA. Sure, we had the Qatar World Cup. And yes, now we have the tournament coming to the United States. Those generated record revenues for FIFA, but do not forget that UEFA owns the Euros, which is an absolute powerhouse, happening every 4 years. They have the Champions League annually, plus all these new national team tournaments, which means UEFA holds a massive and growing amount of leverage, and they are openly questioning how FIFA actually governs the entire sport. That is why I keep saying Infantino does not have the political backing to demand absolute obedience, especially after pulling off a massive stunt like that. If he has any supporters right now, it is purely about returning political favors, cash handouts, and backroom deals. It is definitely not because anyone actually believes his actions were right. What he did was so incredibly toxic that there is absolutely no turning back now. Look, people make mistakes and errors happen at every single level of this game. But making a simple mistake is one thing. Trying to completely hijack the most precious jewel in soccer is a whole different story. We are talking about the World Cups. He wanted to privatize a piece of them, hidden away from the rest of the world. That is not a mistake. There is no innocent oversight here. This was not an accident. When you try to execute a scheme this massive with billions and billions of dollars on the line, pushing a secret agenda without consulting a single person in the game, even though basic common sense tells you it is completely wrong, that is not an error anymore. that is straight up dirty pool behind closed doors. Even if he tried to backpedal later, I think Infantino was pressured and rushed into launching this because of shady promises he made during the World Cup. Not only that, but he tried to sell it by throwing money at the smaller federations. That is exactly what I was saying. He offered Africa $40 million over 4 years instead of 10. He told South America they would get 40 million too. Infantino fully expected that if he targeted the places with the fewest resources, like the Caribbean, the islands, and Central America, and said, instead of 10 million, I will give you 40 million, plus another 25 million over the next 4 years, and then 25 million more. He honestly believed that with all this cash, he could exploit the severe poverty of those smaller associations to buy enough votes and force this project through. Fortunately for us, it completely backfired, and the entire soccer world rose up against him. So I do not believe Infantino is in any position to act tough and talk down to people right now. He might be able to scramble the votes together. But we are talking about high-stakes political warfare here. The silent ones will support him for now. But the second they realize they are on the losing side, they will jump ship immediately and leave him entirely stranded. But let us just say, in the absolute best-case scenario, he somehow manages to secure every single vote. Here is the thing. There is another massive debate that feels almost impossible to fix. It is the highly controversial rule of one vote per country. It is a total lightning rod in global soccer politics, especially when it comes to presidential elections. Why on earth does a vote from England carry the exact same weight as one from New Caledonia? Or Germany or Brazil or Mexico? These massive federations drive the entire sport with their wealth and influence, yet they have no more say. Tiny little island nations, with only a few thousand residents and absolutely no real soccer infrastructure. Yet, when they cast their ballots, they hold the exact same power. How can this change? Right now, it looks entirely hopeless. There is just too much money and a massive power struggle involved, making it practically impossible. But it is a major flaw that the entire election process is forced to live with. Meanwhile, another massive controversy has just leaked out of the FIFA headquarters. UEFA officially declared they will not support a 64-team World Cup. FIFA abandoned that privatization project, but UEFA still rejected the 64-team tournament. Gianni Infantino seemed to have this expansion fully on track. Honestly, even I was initially on board with the idea. I thought, why not go straight to 64 teams instead of 48? Sure, you have to worry about finding training camps, lodging, and stadiums for more games, but still. Purely from a sporting perspective, the recent World Cup was not the disaster critics predicted. Many warned that adding more teams would ruin the quality of play. That never happened. The new nations actually stepped up and fought hard on the pitch. Instead of allowing 8 mediocre third-place teams to sneak through to the knockouts, which made the final group stage games totally boring, they fought hard. If you expand to 64 teams with groups of 4, where only the top 2 advance, the overall level of excitement and competition would skyrocket, in my opinion, especially during that final round of matches, where teams are actively fighting for first place, or desperately clawing their way from third into a qualifying spot. It would be far more thrilling than what we saw recently. To be clear, there were no massive skill gaps between the actual squads, but those final group matches desperately lacked the high-stakes drama we all love. But still, that expansion plan was immediately sent to all federations. He told them they were hiring an outside consulting firm to study the feasibility. But look, whenever FIFA says something like that, it means the deal is already done behind closed doors. They are just going through the bureaucratic motions. It is absolutely wild how an organization so obsessed with protocol suddenly lets Infantino try to sell off the World Cups entirely on his own without any oversight. Highly suspicious. Either way, UEFA has made it crystal clear to FIFA that they will not support this 64-team model in its current form. They are completely out. He also failed to get backing from FIFPro. While the players' union does not hold ultimate power, their voice still carries real weight. Ultimately, Infantino just wanted a safe space to get a simple pat on the back. They promised to back him up. Now he is trying to project immense strength and demand respect at a time when he is absolutely zero political leverage to back up the massive demands he is currently making. No matter how hard he hunts for re-election votes, he has already lost the ability to actually govern. It is time for him to finally realize this, step aside, and let us start looking at the potential candidates for the next FIFA president. Maybe there is a quiet deal to let him finish his term just to avoid an early exit. The actual presidential elections are scheduled for next March. Make no mistake, all the major decisions are on hold. The expansion size, the host city for the final, all of that has to wait. We will have to wait for the next FIFA president to decide.